And hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of SaaS Growth Academy. Today with us we have Olga from Spielworks. She's head of content and comms. Hi, Olga.
Hello. Really stoked to be here and share my experience with all of you
No,
guys.
we really like having you here as well.
Thank you.
So, Olga, can you tell us more about yourself, about your company, and what you do actually?
Of course. As Alexa already mentioned, my name is Olga. I am in charge of content and communications at Spielworks. We are a forerunning Web3 gaming company, so we're in the business of distribution, publishing, and developing games. And as we spoke briefly with Alexa, we have big news of an acquisition today, which makes us, well, a 7 million user base kind of an ecosystem. So it's a lot of folks to cover. And I
Yeah.
imagine that this is a struggle for many of you as well. For what I'm doing exactly, I am overseeing several kind of tracks or vectors of work that we have to do. So I am directly in charge of PR work. That means managing media relations, issuing press releases and whatnot on our behalf, and managing the PR agency, of course. Then the social media part and community management, overseeing a dedicated team that does all of these things well, for me, for us, kind of. Um, and of course, part of my job is also facilitating all sorts of projects that other departments pursue. So, for example, being the kind of in a community facing role, that means our community and our partners, the professionals in the same industry. I connect on any of the other our team members, such as business development and growth, with potential partners, or reignite the existing connections to seize the business opportunities a little bit better for everyone involved.
Yeah. Okay. That seems like a lot of work. Can
It
you
is.
tell us? Yeah, and also congratulations for the acquisition.
Thank you.
Can you tell us more about how you got to doing so much work? How did you go into this industry, into content marketing? I mean, what made you decide it was your call?
Well, I do not remember the exact quote, right? But I think that it was Terry Pratchett who said it at a certain point. Like at the age of 17, I looked around myself and like realized that I'm pretty stupid for everything else. So okay, I'm gonna be a journalist, and this was my line of decision making there, kind of. But no, in all the fairness, I've always liked to read as a kid, to create, leaning more towards textual media, right? So writing more than anything else. And I just decided to make it into a profession. It didn't kind of come right away. I don't think that there are a lot of people that have a very straightforward and a very clear picture of what they want to be in their mind when they're like 10, 12, and then 15, 17, right? But yeah, I eventually landed there, and I started working as a journalist. I started working as a games journalist, in fact, so covering the gaming industry. Eventually, I moved on to fintech and blockchain. And when I was looking for a new opportunity, Spielworks was essentially offering both, right? Because it's a Web3 gaming company. So I was like, man, if it's not that, then I don't know what else. So here I am.
And you mentioned previously that besides content, besides written content, you're also into videos and video production.
That is
How
correct.
how did all of that come together?
Well, it was kind of spontaneous in a way because during my bachelor's years I did receive training as a journalist in basic video production, cutting, editing, script writing, audio editing as well, all of those things. And when I just started working, we needed like promo videos for once some ads, and we also wanted to start a YouTube channel around the game that we were creating. So this is how I've kind of grown into this role, right? Just making, well, as good of videos as I can at first. Then I started getting better and better at this, acquainting myself with Adobe After Effects and whatnot for animations and stuff. And here I am. We don't do kind of a lot of pre-created video nowadays. It's mostly live videos on our Twitch channel and whatnot. But I am also kind of doing the direction for all of those, making all the intros, the branding elements and whatnot. So that's it.
And since you mentioned that you're doing, I mean, both live and pre-recorded, but mostly live, can you let us know what are the key differences in your approach when producing live versus pre-recorded video content?
Well, one thing that you got to keep in mind is that pre-recorded video is more or less solely your creation, right? So from the stage of preparation all the way to final edits and whatnot, the end result, what everybody sees, is entirely up to you. The live videos, however, or like live streams, this is always a process of co-creation because you also work with constant input, uh, input that you cannot ignore, right? So this could be your co-host, this could be the chat, and you have to find this very intricate balance between, sticking to the general plan that you have for this particular piece of content, right? But also getting everybody else more involved in this because we also live in the era of all sorts of services, right? We're very much accustomed to and attached to an idea of everything being responsive, customizable, and whatnot. So if you are not reactive towards what's happening in the chat and whatnot, if you do not acknowledge these people as co-creators, then this is very often a rather disappointing experience for everybody involved. Plus, it's a lot of fun when you get others more a little bit more roped in, a little bit more in the active role rather than just some background voices and pings and texts.
Yeah, and can you tell us more about your audience? Who are they? I mean, who plays your games?
Yeah, so I would say our demographics is rather wide, right? But on average, I would say it's both men and women, mostly men, aged 20 to like 36. A lot of them come from the US, UK, Germany, Brazil, um, Indonesia. Then we also have UK. We have a lot of folks from Taiwan too. So it's a like a mixed crowd. Part of them, because of the nature of our company and what we do, part of them are passionate gamers. Part of them are people interested in the whole play to earn thing, so to say. So there's a little bit of or difference between these folks. But we are trying to satiate and cater to both of these groups with the content, both when it comes to what I'm doing and as in product related content, what goes into the games, the platforms that we have, etc., etc.
Yeah, so with that wide spectrum of demographics and having both groups of people into crypto and people into gaming, how do you approach the whole creative process behind creating content, creating video content as well for such a diverse audience?
I think when you kind of realize that, okay, you're working with very, very different groups here. But what I think can make it a lot easier for any of the content creators in there is finding a common denominator. So, for example, if we look at both passionate gamers, right, and the crypto folks, there is one very, very clear kind of common ground. Is that these people are very competitive. Gamers, for the reason that they want to be the best at the game, they want to perform the best, they want to have the most fun out of it, because well, when you suck, you're not having fun.
Yeah.
Maybe to a limited extent, but still. Whereas the crypto people, they want to have the necessary knowledge to basically maximize the output. They want insider information. They want to stay ahead of the game. So this is the mentality here. And in reality, this does result in different pieces of content, right? So for the crypto folks, there's got to be a checklist of things such as the white paper, any sort of token related updates, all of that. For gamers, we have, of course, a specific category of streams. We have alerts about the games of the week that we have, or any sort of really like player focused highlights. But in the end, it comes from the same place. They want to know more and they want to get more out of that. And this is how I prefer to approach things. It does really help, especially in finding kind of what sort of intersections and overlaps we could have to yeah to basically give to both categories of users that we have.
Yeah, it makes sense totally. And since you mentioned you're going with live video content instead of the pre-recorded, can you tell us more about why is that the case? Why are you doing more live streams? And can you tell us what tools do you use for it?
Yeah, of course. The reason for that is, as I said, it is a very kind of reactive medium in itself, right? Pre-recorded videos, we still do these from time to time when we have, for example, major updates in the game that need explaining in a rather congested form, rather than the walls of text that nobody wants to read now anyway. Um, but it does not really allow for, how do I put it, for a quicker feedback loop, so to say. So, for example, whenever we publish a video about any sort of a new feature or anything along these lines, right? All the videos, they always inspire more questions. And then the begins this sort of back and forth, and people lose track of conversations, you lose track of conversations, and people, well, they're either okay and then they figure things out on their own, or they're sort of get into this panic mode, starting to gather in bits and crumbles of information in any other form available to them. There gets confusion, there gets misinformation and misinterpretation, and this isn't doing anybody any favors, right? Whereas with live content, you can easily clear this up and dispel it, so to say, in a matter of minutes, if not seconds. So I really do prefer live video formats, right? It's also, well, I'm going to sound very predatory, I guess, but this also helps us play on the fear of missing out, right? Because it's a live format, the VOD is only available for a week afterwards, and then that's it. If you haven't watched it, you're never going to watch it. So there's that. It's also a particularly useful tactics, especially if you're working with crypto folks.
Yeah, and one thing you mentioned is no one wants to read today, and I can somewhat agree to that. But does it mean that everyone is then going into video production, and how do you then stand out in such a crowded market?
No, but that's the thing. It very much depends on who you're working with, right? So the gamer folks, for example, they are definitely much more into those snappy video formats. And this is not my personal experience, but for example, a friend of mine, she's a social media editor at a rather big international news agency. And they recently did a study of sorts where they tried various formats specifically with Gen Z, with a Gen Z focus group. Um, even short emails, even nothing works except for the 15 seconds format of videos, TikTok, Instagram Reels. This is the when you're dealing with the future generation, of course, this is the stuff. If you're not doing that, then, or if you haven't signed anybody, an influencer or a group of those who's doing that for you, then you're lost to these people. You do not exist, right? However, for the Web3 audience, this is still very much a thing. I mentioned the white paper for a reason, right? Because this is, to a certain extent, when you get into this game, you got to understand the risks, right? And to prepare yourself for those risks more, you have to have a very clear understanding and documentation of what you're engaging with. Hence, these people read a lot. It's simply the nature of the industry and how one can secure themselves a little bit better against potential yeah drawbacks, because all of those rug pulls and whatnot, this is an all too familiar story to these folks. So yeah, again, I'm coming back to the fact that you always have to look at your community, at your audience.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the Gen Z Reels trend is taking its toll on the whole industry.
Yep.
And can you tell us what trends are you currently observing in content marketing in general? And are you following any actual trend?
hmm I would say for the time being, content tries to evolve in parallel the the whole technological development, right? We are seeing it in the visual content. There is more AI generated stuff, both in video productions and illustrations and whatnot. ChatGPT is a huge help. Some some are probably already using it instead of hiring a professional copywriter and whatnot. Um, so there is definitely a shift of this whole supply and demand kind of a relationship, right? Because to businesses, this will always be about cost optimizations and whatnot. I would argue, though, that forms of content, again, we're coming back to live formats that facilitate connectivity between the person and the brand, that facilitate kind of this, that reinforce this community feeling, they will always be a staple of community building no matter what. And in the end, I personally found that content, especially nowadays when you gotta compete with anything and everyone, and a lot of people say that content can be a very great user acquisition tool and whatnot. Uh, Doubtfully so. People will always rely on, well, very few things that when making the final decision of whether they want to buy the product or not, right? This is going to be reviews, and they will care about those being, actual and not botted reviews. People will always care about whether the product itself kind of fits their own info bubble and the view of the world. And this is where commercial copy can help, of course, when it comes to content, right? To persuade a person. And people will always look at the value, what they get out of it versus what they have to pay. With that, again, content can only help to a limited extent. This is never going to be the decisive factor in when a person decides to buy something or subscribe to something, unless it's a very specific content thing, such as a newsletter or anything of the sorts, right? Um, Content can, however, be a great kind of retention tool. And you don't even have to, how do I put it? You don't even have to view these people as your final users and whatnot, because your community members and people who use your product, they don't always 100% overlap, right? And I would say that the trends are, to summarize my whole tirade, the trends are using influencers more, engaging into some obscure AI things with limited success. And I am assuming that people will always want to connect with somebody else on the other side of the screen. This is why streams of all sorts are very popular. I do not agree that the first two things are great, right? I do not agree with the overall kind of approach to content, that it has to be a nonstop machine aimed at acquiring users. I think that our goal is sort of, for in-house content creators specifically, that we should just make people feel at home. And this is really the only thing that matters at the end of the day.
And how do you then measure the success of your content in terms of audience engagement, if that's the end goal?
For kind of, we do have the overall company objectives and key results, right? They do involve some, okay, this amount of users who on average spend X amount of money in the game. So this is this sort of a higher level of measuring the success, right? How much my team, my department contributed to the company's success. Otherwise, it's a very kind of standard thing, right? The views on the Twitch streams, engagement with the social media posts. Whenever we do, kind of, we go to conferences and whatnot, it's inbound leads. And so on the B2B side, new signups in the games, and generally in-game activity on the B2C side. And again, because it's all blockchain, it's very easily traceable. It's an open ledger. So we can always see like at which point which person started playing the game for the first time there. I would say there's that.
Okay, and well, can you tell us if someone wants to enter the content marketing industry, what advice would you give to them? And I mean, how do they specialize in content marketing and especially in creative writing and video production?
All right. Well, I mean, you do need to set time aside to constantly practice in your craft. That is a given, right? So you need to strive to be better. You need to understand how to adjust your tone of voice to different clients and companies. And if you create some sort of like a memo or a connotation map, essentially, of the language that you would use for this, for this, for this, for this, for that, this could be either a list of words or perfect examples. This has helped me greatly personally. But the reality of things is that you can be amazingly talented, mind blowingly creative. But if you do not hone your business skills, how to sell your services better, where to find clients, how to convert them from prospects into your clients, then this is going to be even more difficult. So I would argue, do, of course, concern yourself with bettering your craft, but this is the essential that you have to really pay a lot of attention to, especially if you want to work as a freelance content creator. You got to be a businessman as well.
And can you recommend any resources, practices, anything? I mean, even maybe some tools that someone could use for learning and improvement.
Sure. So I know that I previously bashed the whole AI ChatGPT thing, but the thing is, what ChatGPT is incredibly useful for, and I think there are several platforms that utilize the GPT-4 model for kind of like text-based role-playing adventures, is for putting yourselves in different scenarios, make the thing pretend that it's giving you a brief, and then work with it. Or if you want to venture off into creative writing to get yourself some inspiration, again, submerge yourself with into different scenarios, interacting with different personalities or characters. This is also a great tool. Um, Video wise, Adobe itself, it has a lot of tutorials, right? For me, it was always kind of an on demand learning curve. So if I don't understand something, I go Google for it and, you know, be done with it. Um, Otherwise, if you understand that you're unable to do something yourself, there is never, there is no shame in hiring a person on Fiverr or Upwork. But whenever you do, ask them to send source files instead, so you could always look up how this or that is done. So next time you wouldn't have to do that.
Yeah. So thank you, Olga, for taking part in our interview series. It was a pleasure having you here, and
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope everyone can learn something from this episode, because I definitely did, and yeah, that would be it.
The pleasure is all mine, Alex. It was really, really great having a chat with you, and I also hope that this was useful. I don't know if any of the contact details and whatnot are going to be left in the video, but feel free to reach out to me, folks, if you have any questions or if you'd like to exchange your experiences.
Okay, see you.
Take care, everyone.